there were 47 players in that photo from 2017 that have become professional players, which is really pleasing for us.
In your canteen, there's perspex boards, floor to ceiling high, with players imprinted on them, pictures of players and their names, and I don't think there's any more room left.
Yeah, we're moving down the windows at the moment. I think we have to be very genuine about what the programme's all about, and so for us, we'd always talk about elite football, we'd always talk about an unparalleled education. I do believe we have the best education in the Premier League. You know, Fabian's come in and phoned me the week before he started, which again is rare. There's probably not many Premier League managers that have phoned the academy manager the week before they actually start to say, heard about the programme, really exciting coming to work with you, and our philosophies around how we work.
So Ian, the title of academy manager has a kind of magic ring for fans because they think that's the factory, you know. And in that factory, there's going to be a long line of great future Albion players progressing one by one, and it's not that easy, is it? It's a difficult business. Tell us what you do and how you do it.
What we try and do, certainly I always sort of say to people the academy systems work from a lot of people over a long period of time. So I've been here just over a decade now, and there's numerous people in so many departments that would contribute to what we do. We have 15 departments now in the academy alone in terms of looking after the players, and we run all sorts really from I'd say we effectively have a schooling system as well as a football system. Our football system obviously starts from 6 and 7 at our development centres and filters into our foundation phase when the players can sign for us at the age of 9. So we're trying to sort of attract the local talent to the football club. I think there's nothing better than a young player from our area coming through and playing for the first team, as we've seen with Jack recently. So that's our goal ultimately. But we have 10 teams across those age groups up to the under-21s, which hopefully feed the first team squad. And around that we would have an education programme that starts from 12, where players come to us on day release, and we support education all the way through to our scholars on degrees and various things. And as they get older and end up in the area and become full-time, then also housing. So we're almost a boarding school, a primary school, a secondary school, a college, on top of an elite football programme. And so the challenge is to support the players through all of those things. I think we know they're all here for the football side of it, and ultimately they all want to play in the Premier League and play for Brighton in the Premier League. So we have to put our efforts into that, making that happen for them. But the reality is we know that's a challenge, and so we're very honest and very transparent. And like I say, I think we have to be very genuine about what the programme's all about. And so for us, we'd always talk about elite football. We'd always talk about an unparalleled education. I do believe we have the best education in the Premier League and in football. And then also from an elite experience perspective, you know, we'll go on trips and tours, and it'll be the first time some children have been on an aeroplane. It'll be the first time they've eaten food abroad. It'll be, you know, hopefully some life experiences. We always talk about when people come through our doors, we want them to leave a better version of themselves when they leave, you know, a better person and hopefully a better footballer. And if we can get both right, I think it gives us a good chance.
So it sounds like your personal role is more to do with managing the academy than the actual coaching, is that right?
Yeah, it is now. I would have come up through the coaching ranks. I certainly would have really enjoyed that. But I was sort of at a time and a stage where, for me, I've always enjoyed the bigger picture. I've always enjoyed the sort of strategy around the academy. Like I say, you're talking about a decade-long programme for some people. So for us, it's really important that we have that long-term view, and so much sort of planning goes into that. For us, we have to be very deliberate about every aspect of what we do, and we try and be very deliberate about every aspect of what we do. So for us, it's sort of development by design, if you will. It's kind of something that we're working at over a long period, and it's something that we have to be very deliberate to compete with the levels of clubs that we're up against now. You know, the best in the Premier League, the best in Europe, the best around the world, and ultimately that's where we want to be. And so we have to look at ways to be our very, very best.
I just want to touch on something you mentioned there about education and how much that's changed in your time at the club. Because the stats don't bode well for young people coming through at the club. Unfortunately, that is just the nature of competing in the best league in the world. How important is it to get that other foundation as well as obviously trying to improve the kids as from a footballing point of view? It's also important to get them ready for life and education in case this doesn't quite work out.
Absolutely, and as I say, it starts right from day one for us. So when we do the induction for our new intake of under-9s, we always start there. We always start with the people and the values, and that's the main focus for us, creating good people. We're also very transparent, very genuine about the process that we run. We have a good record here. You know, there's a lot of players that have gone on to play for the first team. We have a genuine pathway, which I think is visible, which helps us a lot. We've also had a lot of good players now go into the Football League and other leagues around Europe, which is great for us. But also there's a large number, as you say, where the reality is you might not end up in football, or you might end up working in football but not necessarily playing football. So we're always trying to help and educate in that space. We're always very genuine that that's part of it. Even with our oldest players, you know, even if you're going to have a successful career, I always think it's really important that the education helps them. You know, you might do extremely well and then need to manage your money or businesses in the future, you know, so even if you're very, very successful, it's going to be important. So if you don't then cross that pathway, again, it's something that you need to be able to fall back on. You know, it's a tough road, and some people it might be injury related, you know, and other things are needed. So it's something we always talk about a lot. We're very open about it, very genuine about it, and it's something that we're very passionate about, and we're very fortunate here that the club puts a lot of resource into the education side of things. So, as I say, with our scholars, for example, you know, you have the traditional sort of BTEC programs that they run as what would have been an apprentice back in the day. But now we're able to support that with A-levels if they wish to do them. If they want to do higher national diplomas or degrees, we're able to support those as well. And the ratios of the children when they're with us, even from those youngest groups at 12, when they come in on day release, which is 1 day a week where they come out of school into our programme, they'll get 3.5 hours of education with us, and during that period they'll be working on ratios where they're maybe 3 to 1 with a teacher. If they need it, they'll be 1 to 1. So in many ways we're able to help advance their education and improve their grades.
It's an amazing transformation, isn't it? Because you almost describe a university, a modern elite football club, as a university for young people. And you know, when you were working your way up to the system, it would have been hard to envisage a system as sophisticated as that, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's incredible. There's so many things that go on behind the scenes in the journey of a young player now, in the experiences they have, in the education they have. When I started in the game as a coach, you know, education was something you maybe try and get the players into once a week, if you're lucky, and they don't really want to be in there, and maybe they're not getting the best support. But as I say, we're in a position now where we have tutors to help them. Obviously you have some young people with different learning needs, and we need to support that. So we put a lot of investment, a lot of resource into that. But again, it's just so important. It's just a big part of what we do. And again, it's not something where it's one or the other. You know, I'm a big believer that you can have an elite football programme and provide an unparalleled education. And that's our target. It's not a compromise from one to the other. We've got to find the best ways to really maximise both areas for our young people.
When you mention the 3 to 1 and the 1 to 1s, mm-hmm. That is like unparalleled. Like, you can't get that anywhere else in any college, university. That's elite.
Yeah, and I think that's something we need to probably promote a little better, you know, because like as you say, it is a tough journey sometimes, and you do hear stories of players where it's not been a nice ending and it's not finished well, and you know, that's something we're always very, very conscious of. You know, that can be the case, and it's something that does happen. I would like to think it doesn't happen here at Brighton. Certainly not very often. It would be very, very rare. But for us, we put so much focus into our support for players. Our older players, when they leave us, we actually have a 3-year aftercare programme which has been introduced in the Premier League. But on top of that, we're sort of looking at that as a wider alumni programme now, where we talk about, you know, being part of Albion forever. And the nice thing is we're starting now to have players come back to us for help and support many years after they leave. Some might pick up the phone and ask, where's that certificate for the coaching badge that they did 10 years ago? Some might ask if we've got jobs available. You know, we've got a number of players that have come back to work with us, which is fantastic, from the first team, which are brilliant role models. But really pleasingly, we now have some of our sort of more recent players coming back. Matt Everett's just started working with us, who was in our under-21s a couple of years ago. And it's fantastic for us to have players know they can come back and be part of our football club and continue in that journey. So it's really, really rewarding for us. And I think from all of those areas, you get as much reward from the players that do well in life as well as the players that go and play in the Premier League.
Just touching on that and preparing lads for life of not being a footballer as well as being a footballer. You mentioned there's an aftercare programme at the club and from the Premier League. I do wonder about this a lot, because I think when you get released as a 13, 14, 15-year-old, it's your life, and everyone knows about it, everyone around you knows about it, and you are put on a pedestal. Even if you don't want to be, it becomes you as a person. You're that kid that plays for that Premier League team. How important is it when you kind of release a player and the impact on their life? Because I've known young lads locally that I honestly don't think have ever recovered from it. So just talk us through that process.
As you say, I think in years gone by, I think it's probably not had the attention that it deserves, and I think the support now is we're in a position where we can support the players far better than we used to be able to. Again, I think it's something that's very important. We're honest about that journey throughout, and it's not just a conversation you have when you sit down and give them that final decision.
The problem is that they probably don't listen to that part of the conversation.
They don't, no, and you openly say that to the family. So I sort of say it every year. I'll stand up in front of 200 families at the start of every season, and they know that maybe 2 or 3 players will play in the Premier League, and a number might go on to other clubs, but they know their numbers are small, and they all nod and they all agree and they all know. Unfortunately, they all think that their one's going to be the one. So that's the challenge. So I think they know that we're transparent about that. I think they know we're genuine about that. We have to be very conscious in every aspect of what we do that could be the circumstances. So I think that's where, for all our staff, we have to be really, again, very deliberate about how we go about our business. With those players that come through, we're constantly having that dialogue. We're constantly trying to highlight other areas where they can succeed. We're very conscious that their identity doesn't just revolve around being a footballer. We wouldn't really talk of them being footballers. They're schoolboys in our programme, essentially at those ages. So we're trying not to put too much focus on that. We don't encourage social media at those ages for our players, for example. It would be something where at later stages as they progress, yes. But certainly at the younger age, their identity is more than just being a footballer at Brighton. It's a nice part of their life. But we have to be careful with that.
Unfortunately, it's probably not the kids that do that. It's the people around them, and that side of it is pretty uncontrollable. Yeah,
it can be a challenge. It can be a real challenge. And again, we just try and do a lot of work with that. We talk about speaking with our parents and carers, and as they get older, with intermediaries and agents, and it is a real challenge. And I think we can only do our bit. We can only sort of continue to stress those things and help with those things. As you get closer to the process, we try and handle it in the most sensitive way. When it comes down to it, we don't actually talk about release. So we used to send out a letter about retain and release.
I've had one of them.
And it's always been called that.
Just a letter, no explanation.
And it's the toughest part of what we do. It's never easy and it's never nice. And like I say, we can work with young people for year on year. And so to tell them that is really hard for staff, and I think people underestimate that as well. Of course, it's much tougher for the young person and their family, but it's also really difficult for staff, because we do support those young people. But we've taken release out of our wording. We talk about whether they'll get a new registration or not. We've literally taken release out completely from that dialogue, because release suggests you're almost discarded, almost that you're, we don't need to see you anymore. And I don't believe in that at all. Like I say, we're very genuine about the aftercare. We're very genuine that the door's always open, and always say to the players, whether that's in 1 week, 1 month, 6 months, 5 years, 10 years, genuinely we'll always pick up the phone, we'll always try and help. And as I say, more and more players are starting to do that. And now I think it's not something where 5 years ago and I'm doing the youth team and managing the youth team, I think people are like, I can't go back, I've been released. And it's kind of changed a little bit where now they feel they can, now they know they can be part of other things. They see senior role models around the football club that come back and work with the groups. You know, and we've had unbelievable people over the years do that, you know, in terms of Liam Rossini and Crofty, and more recently Gary Dicker in the under-21s roles. You know, we've had Steve Sidwell with the 16s, you know, you've come and done work with the young lads. And so to see people contributing more than just being a player, I think they realise there's more to it. It is such a challenge, and it's something we have to work really hard at. But again, all we can try and do is do it in the best possible way. One of the exciting things we're doing at the moment is we've just started a club agreement with UNICEF. And so we're working very closely with UNICEF. We had a meeting yesterday actually around the rights of the child. So we're actually trying to come at it from a perspective now of, we have some tough decisions to make, but we're trying to work with some industry leaders in terms of how we can do those things in the best possible way. And a big part of that, I think, will be getting the players' voice in that, in terms of, you know, them having an opinion on how they would like those things to be done and how we can support them, and more coming from the young people. Because as you say, a lot of it becomes external, where ultimately then can't control it, and it becomes very difficult.
It's funny because it's without doubt, and I feel quite passionately about this, is without doubt the right thing that you're doing, but it's almost you're setting them up for a fall, because as soon as they get into professional football and they get released somewhere, the word will be released, and there will be no support.
Yeah, it might be elsewhere. It might be. No, but
I mean,
all we can do is our thing.
If they progress as a professional, that's what I mean. But as an adult, once you get into football, it's a cold, harsh environment where you are discarded and there is no support. So it's without doubt right with their age. But once you get into the football, from a professional point of view, it's
really,
not as
really
nice.
can be. And again, all we can do is try and equip them with as much as we possibly can to be successful in life as well. And again, that's something we would talk about a lot. You know, producing players, producing people, and trying to give them a foundation that they'll have a success in life. And yes, they might have that sort of negative kind of decision at the end, but hopefully it can be a positive with the other things they have. And again, it's something we can only just strive to be the best we can.
We'll talk a lot about the successes in a minute, because there have been some phenomenal successes. I just wanted to ask you whether occasionally, even with all this analysis and all this good decision making, you will make, big clubs will still make the odd mistake. You won't spot a late developer. You'll overlook a lad or a young girl who just needs a bit more than he or she's getting, and they go somewhere else, and they turn into a raging success. Well, you try and minimise those. You try and minimise that, don't you?
There's one out there.
Yeah. So, what's your mistake ratio? Tiny, I imagine, at the moment.
Yeah, I don't think we've made too many. I think sometimes, you know, people go on to the first team environment, and then, you know, if they break in here, great. Sometimes they don't, and then go on and do very, very well, as we've seen with some players, and certainly Victor at the moment would be an example of that. And again, someone we're very, very proud of the small sort of piece of work we did to help and support him through his period here with us. But it is difficult. It is a challenge, as you say. Certainly through the youth development phase, you can have, you know, somebody who's 4'6" or somebody who's 6'4", you know, in the same age groups virtually, and it can be really difficult. We have a brilliant team of staff who, and age group specialists who sort of understand growth and maturation of young people. We try and do as much as we can in terms of collaborative data around success stories we've had before and case studies of players we've had before. And again, we just try and be really, really deliberate and give ourselves the best chance of making the best decision. We have a lot of analysis on our programme. We analyse how we play. We analyse how we play as teams, and we analyse how individuals perform within those teams. So it's very much individual based. Our individual development plans drive our programme, so we're constantly looking at every individual from that perspective, and we would have data and insights to try and support the subjective view of the staff. We try and make sure there's some objective data as well to help evidence our decision making. But it is incredibly tough. We have had a good record of it, and I think here, again, that's partly because of the actual football club environment that we have. So as they get to those older stages, for example, from 16, 18, 21 loan first team, I would sit in meetings with David Weir, with Mike Cave, with first team staff, with Tony Bloom, and we would literally map out the whole pathway. So we're we're almost looking constantly 18 months in advance with the older ages about who's going to come into as scholars, who's going to be out on loan, who's going to stay in the building and support the first team, who's thriving in the 21s environment as some players have in the past and then gone directly into the first team. And so we're constantly trying to just map through, but I think that's very rare that you would have all of those people come together. Very rare that right from the top of the football club with our owner that he would come and sit in meetings with the academy manager and map out those pathways for players. That's pretty special.
Yeah.
And it's something that I think is really the success of what we do, because everything else we do in terms of a football programme, you know, we do stuff that works for us and everybody else does it slightly different ways, and we understand that. But for us, that genuine pathway that players can see it, they can feel it, and literally everybody is part of it is such a strength of us.
Again, it's such a transformation. I can remember the days when the first team manager might say to the under-21 manager, have you got anybody you can stick in at right back? Because my right back's just got injured. And he perhaps barely know his name, the under-21 right back. But so let's go through the successes then, because there are enough of them.
I don't know if we've got long enough.
Have we got time? Evan Ferguson, Solly Marsh, Jack Hinchelwood, and of course going back, you know, the great rock of the team, Lewis Dunk. I know I've missed a load, but that's quite a proud tradition now, isn't it?
It is very much so, and again, I always sort of stress that the credit to all the people that have been involved over the years with those players. You know, you go back to Vic Bragg and Martin Hinchelwood and the programme they run as a centre of excellence, you know, and when I arrived, we're just transitioning from a centre of excellence to Category 2 Academy, and the work John Morling did in my role sort of prior to me taking over, and you know, we've had some fantastic people work here, you know, in terms of recruitment, in terms of coaching, in all of those spaces. It would be difficult for me to name all the people that have contributed to those players, and I'm always a big believer that, you know, no one produces a player single-handedly. You know, ultimately the players do most of the work themselves. All we do is put an environment around them to give them the best chance, and so many people have been involved in that. Like I say, we have, again, in terms of people and players, a great heritage there, I think, because when you're talking about those people that have looked after the programme previously, there's always been that humility around what we are, what we're all about as people, what we produce here at the football club. And, you know, it's an honour for us to be custodians of that at the moment and try and continue that legacy. And we try and continue to produce good players and good people, as I've mentioned. But, yeah, we've had a nice track record. Again, all credit to the club that it's engineered that way. The first team managers I've worked with here have been tremendously supportive of us. Chris Houghton would have been tremendously supportive of me when I was on my coaching journey and transitioning to head of coaching, you know, and couldn't do enough to help. Graham Potter was brilliant for us in terms of introducing young players into the programme, and deserves a lot of credit for that. At the same time, the work that Dan Ashworth and David Weir have done in terms of creating that environment as technical directors has been fantastic for us. You know, Fabian's come in and phoned me the week before he started, which again is rare. There's probably not many Premier League managers that have phoned the academy manager the week before they actually start to say, heard about the programme, really excited coming to work with you, really excited to talk about the young people in the programme and our philosophies around how we work. It's incredible, really, and that's why I feel blessed to a degree that you're in this environment. You know, you have support from top to bottom, and you know that when there are the inevitable changes, it remains very consistent for us. So we've had our sort of academy philosophy for the 11 years that I've been here, and we've changed one word. It used to be attractive brand of possession football, and now it's progressive brand, because we wanted it to be a little more punchy rather than just being pretty. And that's the only word we've changed out of our whole philosophy, and we've continued to work and build on that philosophy for a long period of time, and I think that consistency really helps our players in our system.
The obviously the lads that Paul mentioned there, your Dunkies, your Solly March, Evan Ferguson's, Jack Hinchelwoods, they're the ones that make the headlines. But the ultimate source of pride must be when you turn the TV on a Saturday afternoon and it's littered with ex-Brighton players throughout the Football League, throughout Europe. We talk about Victor, he's making waves at the moment, he's done exceptionally well. But the amount of names that I knock on a Saturday afternoon and see on the video printer or see that's been playing for a team is just, from the club I joined, well, it's quite a long time ago now, but that's pretty unfathomable.
It's incredible for us when we look back. We track our our loans, our loan appearance every year. And back in 2013, we had no data because we couldn't get anyone a loan in the Football League. And that's something we've kind of built on year. And I think that is a benchmark when you now consider how many people are playing in the league and playing at good levels in the league. You know, the players that we've got in the Championship at the moment, Mark Amani, Andrew Moran at Stoke, you know, James Beadle's in goal for Sheffield Wednesday, Cole Rushworth's at Hull. You know, you've got all these young people now playing at really, really good levels. And that growth for us has been incredible. And again, so much work from so many people during that period.
I mean, 11 years from not being able to get anyone a loan to probably be one of the leading lights in the game at the moment. And but also, I just want to say there, not just loans. I just mean lads who have been at the football club,
playing,
and been under your care.
Yeah, they you know, we're very, very proud of them all. When you try and keep in touch with most of them, and it becomes harder and harder on a Saturday afternoon trying to see how they've all got on.
Do you have a number, Ian?
But there's a lot of different routes as well to it. I think, you know, we do a lot of work here, and players have come through our system, obviously, which is fantastic. But even players that have been with us as schoolboys, that again, going back to that decision-making process. Our staff, Ben Smith in particular, for sort of the last 8 years at under 16, and our staff do a fantastic job in terms of supporting people to go on as scholars. And we have a tremendous record of players that don't become scholars with us that go on to other clubs, and have been incredibly successful. And it's still a real sense of pride for us, you know, that they've gone on and had a career in the game, and all credit to them. And sometimes it might be that the move is the best thing for them.
You don't have a number by any chance, do you? Because Sir Alex Ferguson used to keep a personal count of this at Man United, and he'd say, we've got 93 players at other clubs that have come through this system. I mean, I don't suppose you've got 93, but it's a very high number, isn't it? Yeah, we're doing a piece of work on it at the moment, because it's something we've spoken about a lot lately, because it would be nice to have a definitive number. I did an induction for our staff at the start of last season, and we spoke about the changes and the growth of the football club over the last few years, and partly that was aimed at us needing to raise the bar and continue to raise the bar. You know, now we've got to produce Champions League footballers in essence, and international footballers, so we're looking at ways for us to grow. But when I did that exercise, we kind of have a lovely shot we do every year of all our players and staff in the stand at the Amex. So we have like the whole academy in the photo, and I talked about it from a staff perspective, and we'd sort of transitioned from 30 staff in one photo to 70 in the next, you know, some years later. And the demands on us to make sure that we justify that. But also in that shot, which would have gone back to some of those players that we mentioned, I think there were 47 players in that photo from 2017 that have become professional players. Wow. Which is that's incredible. Really
pleasing for us. Like I say, we don't take all the credit for that, certainly. You know, some will have found other routes. You know, we have a great relationship with our neighbours at Worthing, and some of the players have gone into some more local football, again at a very, very good level, and then transition that way. You know, which is fantastic. And but again, there's different routes and different ways it can happen. Again, the more we promote those things, the easier it makes that decision making around registrations. You know, if we don't offer a new registration, there's very different routes you can go, and we try and support with that. And as I say, at 16s especially, we have a really good track record of people going on and becoming scholars somewhere else, and it gives them another start in the game.
One thing that's really nice that a lot of the fans listening now won't be aware of is that in your canteen there's perspex boards floor to ceiling high with players imprinted on them, pictures of players and their names, and how many appearances they made for the first team. And I think when this was built, this place, it probably would have been one or two boards, and now it's I don't think there's any more room left.
Yeah, we're moving down the windows at the moment.
Well, that must be a nice reminder every time you walk in.
Yeah, it's brilliant, and again, it's something where we can all sit at lunch and have a sense of pride, and you often look back and reminisce at some of the players on the wall. And
every time I'm in there, I point, and it sparks conversation.
Yeah, and you realise how old people are getting, and how many years they played, and everything else. So it's a bit frightening at our age as well, I think. But yeah, it's brilliant for us to see, and again, it's with everything here at the training ground, everything is designed to be aspirational. So the design of the building is for them to see where they're heading next. You know, the first team are very visible to our academy players. We're not on separate sites, we're on the same site. You know, there's glass everywhere deliberately so they can see the the design
So
and
they
the,
can look
and the
but can't
pathway.
touch.
They can see it, yeah. You have to earn that next bit, and again, that's why it's a very progressive process for us. But in terms of the academy, we're really proud of those players, and it inspires the next generation, I think.
Do you know the first instance I saw of that when I was growing up? Of that, like, kind of you're part of something but you're not quite there yet.
Mm-hmm.
Is we played. I was at Carlisle as a scholar, as in the youth team, and we played Blackburn Rovers, and we were at their academy training ground, and the tiles around the shower had a border of, the open rows of Blackburn Rovers. It was a closed bud.
Was it?
I thought that was.
Yeah.
That's
nice
clever.
Yeah.
I think it's so important, and we try and retain that here. We try and provide as much as we can for the players, but also, like I say, knowing the football club story, you want to retain that humility about what we have and where we come from, which is so important. And I still believe it needs to be progressive. So we have certain things in the system, in terms of the games program we have, or the amount of kit they have, or the buses they travel on. It's still important to us to kind of retain that, and I always think it brings a little bit of hunger for the players, that they want that next thing. So we're very conscious not to give them too much too early, but at the same time you want to support them to be the best they can. Yeah,
it makes it incremental, doesn't it? It just struck me, Ian, that picture you talked about of all the academy players in the stand at the Amex, if you show that to young players and say, look, even if you don't make it here, and we want you to make it here, there's a lot of lads in that, a lot of people in that picture who've gone on to have good careers elsewhere, and that would soften the blow of the thing that you're talking about, and that crashing blow of thinking you've been rejected, when actually it's just another stage in your process.
Well, I think that, from youth football to coaches to anyone that works at this football club, everybody around the world seems to just want a little bit of this, I suppose, stardust that seems to be sprinkled on the club at the moment. So whether it's a young lad on his journey and he's not quite ready or right for this situation here, then there'll always be a taker, because that's what Brighton have done. They've put themselves on that level that anybody that might not be right for them, someone will always take them, and that goes for coaches, and it goes throughout the building. I think it really is kind of a centre of excellence, really, and it's viewed in football on a pedestal at the moment, and it's people like this man to my right that continue that.
Yeah, we just hope that people listening to this won't steal your secrets, Ian. Apologies if they do, but I'm sure you'll always stay ahead of the game. So
we try. I think that's part of it. You try and share as much as you can, and it's quite a nice community now in football. I think we all share ideas, and you try and take things from different sports and different places where we can always be better. So you're always trying to find that next sort of competitive edge. But again, I think that's a big part of what we do. You have that humility of where we've been and what we're all about, but also there's that continuous ambition, and again that comes right from the top of the football club in terms of the next steps and where we want to go.
Yeah, those are great insights into how the academy works and how the academy thinks. So thanks for your time, and thanks for joining us.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.